Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Extend my condolences to you, brothers and sisters, and to the Imam of our time on the third night of Moharram. Just a few quick announcements. Tonight's sponsors are Bakr Zaidi and Samiya Zahra. The names of their marhumin are Kazim Ali, Habibul Nisa, Zille Hasnan, Alia Khatun, Hassan Rizvi, Muhammad Ali, Nur Jahan, Muhammad Salman, Sadrul Nisa, Ziaul Hasnan, Sayyid Ikram Ali, Ibn Sayyid Manzoor Ali, Abida Begums, Bint Sayyid Zahid Hussain, Rehana Zadi, Bint Sayyid Muttaqi Abbas, Sayyid Ashfaq Hussain Zadi. Please recite a Fatiha for all these marhumin, for your own marhumin, for the marhumin on the monument of Zahra. Fatiha ma'a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I don't have anybody for poetry today. If someone is interested in reciting any poetry in any language, they can come forward and recite. If not, then I can invite Maulana for the speech. Okay, then Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, Maulana, come forward for the speech, inshallah. Okay. Yes.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أحسنت. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى لقاء يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأهد مني لزيارتكم. All together inshallah out loud. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. I can hear your salawat. Another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. May Allah inshallah give us tawfiq and inshallah the opportunity to be among the Azadaran and those who are mourning for Sayyid al-Shuhada and those who also follow the path of this Imam and the great companion and family. Inshallah, recite another salawat and lift it to Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. محمد عجل فرجه. Usually the scientists, psychologists, sociologists, those who are in any forms of studying the societies, the world, the events of the world, they pay attention to certain events in the world that has the most impact on human beings, either in certain regions or internationally. When they want to develop social media, when they want to develop new apps, when they want to do some new softwares, the way that they look at it is that how it can influence the majority of people, how it can impact, how can make it interesting for the majority of people, so the majority would use that. What can we do so people would not forget about that app? That's why they do different strategies. They have reminders, send it to you, right? They have the structure of the app, somehow that you will be addicted to it, that you go back and forth, check it. Certain, incentives, motivations that you go back, check it so you won't forget about it, right? Sometimes you see the apps, some apps that you don't use anymore, says it's been 10 days you're not using it. It's been 50 days you're not using it. Come back and use it. So it's all about reminding you, it's all about making it globally interesting. It's all about what can we do, people would become more interesting for people and they don't forget about it. When it comes to the social events, gathering, historical events, the same thing. They go and study what happens and why this occasions, this event, something happened, and why people are interested in that. One of the most important and interesting events for the scholars of different knowledge and science is the story of Karbala that happened close to 1,400 years ago in a small region by a group of people, 72 plus people, that happened in one corner of the world, one nation and one culture. And up until today, after 1,400 years, the entire world, they remember it. Not only they remember it, not only they can't forget about it, they are influenced by it. How's it even possible? Not only they're influenced by it, in the Arba'een walk, close to 30 million people walk 4 days, 3-4 days, sometimes barefoot, to be able to get to that city and to visit a shrine, call it so and so. This is very interesting and at the same time strange for those who are not familiar with the story of Muhammad. That's why we have articles by non-Muslims about Arba'een of Muhammad. They have to study it, right? Doesn't matter Muslims, they have to study it as scientists, as scholars, as sociologists. What is it? How is it even possible? People from the United States, they leave, they take the ticket, leave the job, leave the study, everything, the school, for the sake of going there, and Arba'een are coming back. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people, right? But academically, something is going on that is attracting people there. We have to study. We'll Google it, the study that happened throughout the world about Arba'een and amongst the ourselves. It shows the potential of the story of Karbala and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Full potential of it. That, as we mentioned, that the Ashura and Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Maktab of Imam Hussein, the school of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is alive. It's literally alive. There are certain things in Quran we call it alive, not dead. For example, when it comes to Jahannam, when it comes to hell, the way Quran introduces it is that it's alive. It's inviting, it's just waiting for some people to come towards it. It's not dead. Some of the reason, before again we continue the topic that we have for every night, some of the other reasons that can be part of the factors that make the Karbala and the story of Imam Hussein alive. We mentioned last night 3 things. The will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Quran says everything in this dunya is perishable except what belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kullu wajhin fan. Everything is perishable in this dunya, nothing would left. Anything in this dunya, you see, us, this world, the mountains, the natures, everything will be gone one day. Nothing will be left. At the end of the time, everything will be leveled on the ground, except whatever belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that whatever belongs to Allah can be an action, can be a behavior, can be a human being, can be a personality, can be a project. Whatever it is, it belongs to Allah, that would stay. Throughout the history, look, how many people came and left, gone, no one knows about them. How many people came, left, gone, but their works are still alive? Huh? Sheikh Abbas al-Qawmi, Mafatih al-Janat, is in every single Shia's house, there's one book of Mafatih, right? The book of Dua. He's gone, but one book of him is still there. Belongs to Allah. The work belongs to Allah, right? A book, a project, whatever it is. On top of all, what Imam Hussein did, the reason that he's alive, because of what? It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One, the will of Allah. Second, the characteristics of Imam Hussein. Third, the enemies of Imam Hussein and the way that they attacked the Qiyam of Imam Hussein and Imam Hussein and how they killed so barbaric, bloodthirsty way. This is another reason. Another way that we can look at it is that Imam Hussein, the goal of Imam Hussein, what was the reason? The hadaf and the goal of Imam Hussein. He said, the reason I stood in front of Yazid is what? لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ الْجَدِّ. The reason is one thing, to reform the ummah of my Jad, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So the goal is ilahi, it's divine, it's spiritual, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If my goal in life become a divine goal, in finding a job, getting married, going to school, making money, doesn't matter. If my goal is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the color of that job, of whatever I'm doing, is sabaqat Allah, is the color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's beautiful. And Allah would bless that job. Allah will bless that. Whatever it can be. An opposite of that, there's the danger of being, gone without any benefit for the person who did it. The other reason that I'm going to connect it to the story of the topic of tonight, the other reason that this Karbala Imam Hussein is alive is that they followed the Islamic regulations and usul and principles of Islam in their uprising. In Safin, the war of Imam Ali against Muawiyah, first Muawiyah, he got to the water of the region and he put the ban. He didn't let the army of Imam Ali get the water. If Yazid is doing, because it's in the culture of Yazid. Remember we said, Imam Hussein is the culture of Nabawi, it's the culture of Iman, and Yazid is the culture of Bani Umayyah, it's the culture of Kufr. If you want to follow Yazid, Muawiyah, Abu Sufyan, go back to Namrud, go back to Fir'aun. This is the culture of Yazid in Karbala. Okay? The confrontation of these two together. So, Imam Ali first, Muawiyah got to the water, didn't give any single drop of water to the army of Imam Ali. It changed, they attacked, now Imam Ali's army got the water. The companion, the soldier says, now this is our time to retaliate. Imam says, no, we don't do that. Give them water. Do not stop the water from going to their camp. Someone can see this is a strategy of the war. Why don't you? No, we don't do this. We don't do something that is against deen and fiqh and regulations of Islam. The topic we're following every night is the modern era of ignorance. we're looking at the ignorance of the pre-Islamic era, of the ignorance that happened at that time. We're looking at the traditions and ayat al-Quran that Rasulullah says, I have been raised to be the prophet between two era of Jahiliyyah. Literally. When we understand the first era was pre-Islam, well, we have to understand what is that? The next one. What is the other one? We call it the modern era of Jahiliyyah. We want to make sure, are we in the era of ignorance or not? It looks like in this night we're reviewing, there are a lot of similarities that made it worse than the era of Jahiliyyah and ignorance at that time. We mentioned one of the major characteristics of that time was two major things. That the era of Jahiliyyah means ignorance. The era of ignorance at that time were rotating around two things. One, the sexual desires, shahawat and desires in any form. Second, violence and anger. The two things that we mentioned nowadays are the major attractions for the secular world. In the movies, Hollywood movies, and the documentaries, everything we talked about it rotates around two things. The characters, they should fight with each other to make it more interesting, right? In all documentaries we mentioned, to make it interesting. Second, rotates around the desires, right? Specifically sexual desires, to make it attractive. Every single movie, if you look, by Hollywood, that are among the top notch, they have these two among the most important attractions that they rotate around. That's why sometimes they run out of idea, because you know how many you want to make, just two. One of the, when you look, when I'm talking, I want all of us to, you start comparing that time and our time. Like, look at these in our time to see what are the wrong things that are happening in our time and the connection with that time, the era of Jahiliyyah before Islam, right? The Jahiliyyah of that time, the ignorance, the era of ignorance of that time, pre-Islamic era, was in a small region by limited number of people. Agree? Yeah, a group of people. Let's say 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever it is. Today, the scope of this ignorance that we are in, the era of ignorance in Jahiliyyah, is the entire world. By countless number of people. Which one is scary? Which one looks scary? And we mentioned, remember that we said the virus, it mutates, it becomes stronger. The new variants are becoming stronger than the Jahiliyyah is, we mentioned, Jahl and ignorance is in front of aql and wisdom, is in front of getting away from ahkam of Islam, Islamic regulations. Because Rasulullah came and he removed the era of Jahiliyyah, ignorance of that time, by bringing Islam. What is Islam? Islam is aqidah, is beliefs, is fiqh, is, Islamic regulations, is akhlaq and moral aspects, right? This is Islam. There's three components. Quran is about this: akhlaq, fiqh, regulations, right? And the aqidah, beliefs. With these three things, categories, Rasulullah removed the entire Jahiliyyah that was rooted in the society for years and years. Meaning that anywhere, anytime, purposely I'm repeating, anywhere, anytime, by any group of people or a person, get away from the teachings of Islam and divine regulations and teachings, will fall into Jahiliyyah and ignorance. The reason that today the world are progressed by knowledge, by science, but we see that they're going down by moral aspects. Every day we're hearing something new about the corruptions in the societies, in the world. Sometimes you look at this, oh my God, look what is happening. So now let's go, because this 3 nights we talked a lot about this characteristics. Now we want to go step by step more into the details to see that some of the important reasons and similarities between that time and our time. We mentioned that, being away from the jahl and being away from Islamic regulations being jahl. 50 years after the demise of Rasulullah, Karbala happened. Imam Hussein said, I am standing in front of Yazid to pull out people from jahl and ignorance. What kind of jahl and ignorance Imam Hussein is talking about? What kind? Only 50 years after the demise of Rasulullah, he was able to remove the jahl and ignorance, but every day after the demise of Rasulullah, people got away from the teachings, the true teachings of what? Islam. Moving towards jahl and ignorance, again and again. To the extent that the Caliph of the Prophet of Islam is someone by the name of Yazid, okay, that he is obviously drinking. He is into any type of sins that you can imagine, illegitimate relationships, any haram, obviously, apparently in front of others, he's doing it. The representative of the entire Muslims, the leader of Muslims, quote unquote, is this type. Group of people in Medina, right? That according to our categories, they're not Shia. The group of, let's say, Sunnis, for example, if we're going to put it in this way, right? They heard a lot of issues from the Khalifa of Rasulullah for Yazid. They said, yes, let's put together a group of people. Let's go to Sham, Damascus, to see who's this person that we're hearing a lot of bad things about him, right? They went there, a group of people. When they came back, they said, how was it? The group, when they came back, they said the entire day they were in Damascus, in Sham, we were asking Allah, we were praying so the stone wouldn't come from the bala, wouldn't come from the sky because of the presence of this guy Yazid. Anything that you can imagine, he is doing it. The same person is attacking Medina by his entire army and killing innocent people, you know, elders, adult children, that the history says the blood was running on the street of Medina. The companions of Rasulullah were there. Some years after that, he's attacking Kaaba, setting Kaaba in fire. Khalifatul Rasulullah. See the jah? Getting away from Islamic regulations, Islam and Islamic teachings. What will happen? Of course, when that happened, people fall into jahl and ignorance, and they stay in front of the son of Rasulullah, Imam Hussein, and they will be hit to death to that level into this system. So, some of the similarities. Look at, I want to take you to Quran now, and let's compare that time and our time. And we are looking in our time, the modern era of Jahiliyyah, we're looking at it, right? Quran says, Riwayat says there are certain areas, places, and environments that can push you towards ignorance. One, Quran says, people of A'rab, Badawi people, I want you to pay attention, it's very, our discussion is very academic and very delicate. Quran says the Arab and Badawi, Bedouins, are exposed to jahl and ignorance. What does it mean? Chapter 9, ayah 97, so on. Al-A'rabu ashaddu kufran wa nifaq. Arab, in this ayah, means those Bedouins away from the city. Let's say the city of Medina. On the other side, in a desert, that they can't hear about Islam, they can't hear about the Ahkam of Islam, they can't hear about ayat of Quran. Those people are ashaddu kufran. They're among the worst type of kuffar and hypocrites. The worst type of disbelievers and hypocrites. Why? Because they're away from the Islamic environment. Being away from the Islamic environment would expose you to ignorance and jahl. Just for reference, some people who are just joining us tonight, we talk about it. Some of the references at that time, the era of ignorance, one of the major things we said violence, right? Last time we mentioned World War I and World War II, 80 million people were killed by these two world wars in the 20th century. If you put the entire asr of Jahiliyyah, an era of ignorance at that time, it wouldn't be probably more than 10,000. 80 million, 60 million World War II, 20 million World War I, just were two world wars. That's it. Forget about other wars that we have until now. I was doing research, 56 million abortion per year. One of the major characteristics of the era of Jahiliyyah is what? Killing, burying their own daughters alive, right? Just daughters, just girls. Horrible, just girls. 56 million per year. Just, these are, by the way, reported. God knows about how many numbers are not reported. Part of this is official. And I told you, I can't even tell you what type. I don't want to even say go to search because we have some different ages here. So what does it mean, abortion, and how they do it? A live creature, right? Cutting the body parts to pull it out. Someone says, what if it's, it's a situation, what if the mother didn't want, what if it was the break, blah, blah, blah. You want to kill someone else because someone else made a mistake? Huh? How about the grown up? You kill another person and justify it with the name of, you know what? That was a mistake actually here. Islam says there's no difference. When the ruh comes, from the beginning actually, from the beginning, there's no difference. 56 million, where the word is going. Being away, Bedouins, being away from the Islamic environment will expose you to jahl and ignorance. How many of you guys happen to you, for some reason, the work, school, you got away from the Islamic environment, from the masjid, from the house, you got away somewhere. How many of you guys happen to? Pay attention to yourself during that time. You didn't have access to go to the masjid. Maybe some of you guys, older ones, you don't have it. I have it to myself. When I was studying, there was a group of, a number of, so sometimes that I was so busy, I was away somewhere else. No, I could see the effect on myself. Being away from the Islamic environment. Again, let's go back. The era of Jahiliyyah, killing each other left and right. Thousands and thousands people were killed left and right for some absurd reasons. The camel of this tribe came to the other side of that tribe, so let's kill each other. Being away from Islamic environments. Islam comes and removes that jahl from people. The same ignorant people become great Muslims. They open the doors of their houses, helping each other, become so amazing, become so nice, supporting the same Muslim, the same people. In the era of jahl, ignorance, become Muslim, ignorance gone, they are Muslims. If I am in an environment, meaning I have friends around me, that when I'm hanging out with them, I'm away from Islamic environment. If I have family members, that being with them, they motivate me, they help me, they push me to be away from Islamic environment, I'm being exposed to jahl and ignorance. Anytime and any moment someone commits sins, that time, that person is in ignorance. Hadith, we have hadith. A little bit scary, but it's important. Hadith says, any of our Shia, any of our followers, when they commit a sin, when they commit a sin, that time that they're committing sin, they're out of our wilayah, our guardianship. That time they're not Shia, but a concept of Shia. It's impossible you be Shia and no. That time it can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. That time they're not Shia. Because they're in complete jahl and ignorance. It's scary. We have similar things with Islam as well. Because Shaitan is doing this, right? That's guardianship. We'll talk about it. If there is a gathering, if there is a wedding, party, whatever it is, it can be family or Muslim, mixed together something. If it is haram happening there, I'm exposed to that jahl and ignorance there. Meaning, the same type of jahl that was at that time. So number one, based on Quran, is what? Being away from the Islamic environment. You should bring the Islamic environment to the house. Specifically us living in Western countries, right? The dominant culture is not Islamic culture. That's what many Maraja are saying. I have to say it. If you cannot hold your Iman in non-Muslim countries, it's wajib to go to a Muslim country. If you cannot, if you know your Iman is in danger, you cannot live there because your Iman is number one that you need to. Second, condition, environment that would bring jahl and ignorance to people. Stubbornness. The status of the stubbornness. Lajajat. One of the major characteristics of era of Jahiliyyah and ignorance is that they're so stubborn when it comes to the truth, to haqq, to the obvious truth. They're stubborn. They don't want to accept it. Quran says, chapter 17, ayah 72, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هذه الدنيا أعمى فهو في الآخرة أعمى وأضل سبيلا ومن كان في هذه أعمى فهو في الآخرة. Those people who in this dunya, they're so stubborn, they're like blind, they don't see the truth, they don't want to follow the truth, and in the day of judgment, they're blind as well. They're going more astray at the day of judgment. Being stubborn. This stubbornness can be among husband and wife. When the fights happen, you know that when the stubbornness comes, right? They're stubborn. They don't understand. He knows that no, he shouldn't have talked this way, but no, I don't apologize. No. Parents to children doesn't matter, the same thing. Children relationship with parents, the same thing. Stubbornness. Lijajat. One of the meaning of jahl was in front of aql and wisdom, not accepting what the aql and wisdom is saying. When someone is stubborn, purposely they're not following the truth. Third factor is shaitan. He promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. Swear to you, Ya Allah, that I worship you 6,000 years with the years of akhirah, not years of dunya, right? I swear to you, I will destroy human beings. He promised. In this world and again, in this world, the same way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his guardianship, and people are following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, group of mu'mineen, shaitan has guardianship. The same way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping mu'mineen, shaitan is facilitating committing sins and haram for a group of disbelievers and kuffar and those who follow. The majority, I wish I could talk more openly about this type of things. Maybe in another private session we can talk more openly about these things. That's how shaitan is ruling the world. How shaitan is really in charge of the world. The last surah of Quran says what? قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الَّذِي مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ. Shaitan min al-jinn can be a jinn, which is Iblis, one nas, human beings. The world is being managed. This dark side of the world is being managed by Iblis, literally. And shayateen from human beings. It's impossible. This much corruption, this much darkness, this much ugliness, this much fasad, it's impossible without, Ayatul Kursi says. وَالَّذِينَ أَوْلِيَاءُهُمُ الطَّاغُوتُ يُخْرِجُونَهُم مِّنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. Those people who their guardian is Taghut, is Shaitan, take them from Nur and light to Zulma and darkness. And Shaitan is equipped head to toe with the most modern and updated tools and weapons. I will destroy him. Do you think Shaitan, that he's standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's the head of disbeliefs and kufr now, okay? Do you think Shaitan is attacking human beings with the same strategy that he was attacking 5 million years ago, for example? 5,000 years ago? How come, the hackers update themselves every day with the new version to attack and, hack your system and your account and everything? Which are the little, Shaitan. How about the Shaitan, Iblis, is not updating his equipment and everything? Of course it does. Of course it will come to the mind of certain people. If you make this type of movies, this type of things, you are going to deceive and you're going to destroy a lot of people with 1 hour movie. With one documentary. With 1 minute social media, Instagram clip. You can and you should. What do we say? Shaitan comes and, right? Waswas al-khannas. What is waswas al-khannas? You know what is the meaning of waswas al-khannas? Someone come and talk to you this way. Khannas means this. You can't see it. You can't see him or her, or you can hear. When Shaitan comes, you don't see it, but you hear it. Don't you think that person who is in charge of the corruption, the bigger scope of corruption in the world, don't you think Shaitan is not whispering? Shaitan is in front of him talking literally to that person, right? It's a different scope now. You think Shaitan says this way is better, by the way? Well, I think if you put this way and this way, if you make this type of things, it's gonna be better. We have in the history of Islam, it says, for example, in certain times, when the group of kuffar and disbelievers, they wanted to kill Rasulullah in Laylatul Mabit, right? They want to kill Rasulullah. They said that, someone says, let's kill him. One person go kill him. Someone says, there's someone else. They said an old person came into the meeting that the heads of the disbelievers were sitting. Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, they were sitting, just talking and thinking, how do we get rid of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? They said all of a sudden an old guy came. No one knows in the history who is that guy. And then they interpreted that guy is Shaitan, who physically entered to the meeting. When he says that they can't, he's coming himself, right? They said, you know what, the best way is this. All of you from each of the tribe that you have, one representative, together go attack Muhammad, kill him. When you do this, then Bani Hashim, the tribe of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, cannot attack and fight with all of you guys. Everyone says, wow, this is an amazing idea. How come we didn't think about it? Shaitan comes and provides the opportunity to do this, is going to work. Third, we said violence, remember? There's 2 major things, violence and desires, sexual desires. And what about it? I was maybe 5 years ago, I was in Austin. They invited me to a church. Group of Christians, they were together every Sunday, certain time, study Islam. Can you imagine? They had a book, I forgot the name of the book, from one of the Islamic authors, reviewing, and they were studying Islam. I don't know what was the reason, but they were studying Islam. Maybe 30 people, mostly, elders, studying Islam. I was there for a lecture. They invited me to go. I went there. The discussion happened, different topics. Anyhow, one of them said, you know what? Something you said was very interesting. She was a Christian lady. She said, she was older one. She said, if my grandma come back to life now, let's say she passed away 30 years ago, 20 years ago. If she comes back to life now, see the United States, she will die out of surprise. What kind of society is this? What kind of corruption is this? And she was referencing to the nudity, the corruption. She was saying, if we go to the beach now and he says, my grandmothers will die out of, oh my God, what is this? She says, that time People could not go to the beach and swimming with this type of things, you know? No, they should have been covered totally differently. When you look at the movies, by the way, look at the movies. Go to 1800 movies, come all the way to 1900, come all the way to 2000, right? When you go to 1800, how the woman look like? I'm talking about United States and Western countries, right? How do they look like? Up to here, they're covered, right? The colors. There's a big hat covering them, right? Everything. Very loose, right? Dresses that they have, everything. It's a study, by the way. It's an academic study. You can go, Google it. Everything is covered with the best, right? Come newer and newer and newer version. Every time you come forward, you see that the hat is getting crooked, and then gone. This just goes down, becomes tighter. Oh. Anyhow, the second one. We have to talk a lot about the second one. What I'm trying to see how to make it, inshallah, appropriate for everyone around. And the second one. And Shaitan is rotating around the second one in the world right now. Hazrat Yusuf, look what he says. Chapter 12, ayah 33. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The women were inviting him to have a legitimate, relationship with him, right? He said, oh Allah, he prayed, say, Allah, prison to me is better than what they're asking me to do. Zulaykha and others, right? They're asking to have that relationship. Prison is better to me than that. If you do not take this away from me, Ya Allah, if you don't destroy their ideas or whatever it is, I'm afraid I'm going to be among the Jahileen and ignorant people. You might fall into the ignorance. If I tell you the era of ignorance before Islam, how they were rotating around it, different varieties of relationships. I can't open it up too much. I'm just giving some very slightly references. Hopefully you'll get it. And then come back to this time, you yourself, and have this great comparison to see what is going on today. They have different type of relationship at that time. I'm very, very, again, careful to make it, inshallah, appropriate for everyone. They have it the nikah maqt. This is the easiest one. That when the father was passing away, the son who married the mother, not his own mother, the wife of his father. This is one type of nikah. You have a relationship. Second, I wish I could talk in details, like to tell you how horrible it is and how similar it is with nowadays. Nikah jamr. I can't open it up. Nikah badal. Exchanging things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 different types of relationships. Six or 7 different types, and they had name for every single one of them. This one, it's the name. That one, do you think when you go to that society, it says, Astaghfirullah, you are doing this, that's so horrible. You group of people, this is horrible, right? You shouldn't do that. Do you think this is, oh yeah, it's very horrible? No, they will look at you and say, what do you mean it's horrible? You think today you go to certain people and says, this is wrong what you're doing. This is, you should. You think they say, oh my God, astaghfirullah. They said, what's wrong with you actually? It's actually very good. And they put names, they justify it, and support it, everything else that comes, right? That's one thing that ignorant people at that time, they were doing a lot, rotating around this topic. And we have to do a lot. We talk a lot, by the way. I promise you, tomorrow, maybe the night after, we have to open, because this is one of the most important aspects in the Quran actually about this topic. We have the ayah Quran brings and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that and what he's recommending. We have to talk about it. But that's one of the things, the major things that happens. Now we understand when Imam Hussein he comes and says, I want to reform the ummah of my jet. I want to reform Islam, what he meant. Unfortunately, the modern jahl and ignorance, it's so hidden that sometimes Muslims and maybe believers, they don't understand that this is jahl that is coming to their houses. This is ignorance that's coming to their houses. They're doing something that totally ignorant people are following and practicing. The tradition says when Imam Mahdi, Imam Zaman alayhi salatu wasalam, he comes, Allahumma salli ala. It says when he comes, group of believers come and accuse him. He says, no, you brought a new deen. This is not a deen of Islam. No, we don't accept this deen. You know why? No, he brings the deen of Rasulullah. The deen of that time, it's so changed by Muslims that when he comes and says, no, this is not the deen, they're surprised. No, this is not the deen. We're Muslim. We're praying. You see, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. There's a tradition, I'll bring it to you. The Rasulullah says at the day of judgment, Huzaifa is saying, at the day of judgment, at the end of the time, group of Muslim comes, they have masajid, beautiful masajid, but they don't follow Islam. They read the Quran, but they don't follow Quran. And he's saying, Rasul, they are kafir or Muslim. This is apparently they're Muslim. They have the Islamic elements, but they're not Muslim. They're not following Islam. When Imam Mahdi comes, he says, no, you brought a new deen. Why? Because they changed deen so much. They're so comfortable with their own deen. How they look like, how they pray, how they do what they do, what kind of things. Full of their own ideas in deen. And the deen that Imam Mahdi he brings and he shows, they don't accept it. What happened to Imam Hussein? You're so surprised? How is it possible? Imam Mahdi comes and he brings the deen and they don't accept it? Or Imam Hussein, he brought the deen and they didn't accept it? Imam Hassan والسلام, before Imam Hussein, he's the Imam of Imam Hussein. All the companions of Rasulullah, they're still in the society. They saw that Rasulullah says, Hassan, he is, Hassan and Hussein say, Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. Sunni and Shia narrated it, right? They are the youth of the paradise. Left and right, Rasulullah is talking about Imam Hassan. They call him Ya Mudhill al-Mu'mineen. You're the one who you're humiliating Muslims. Al-Mu'mineen. The Imam is in the society. He's showing this is the true society. The deen. They're saying, no, you're lying. It's not the deen. The deen of Yazid is the deen. Imam Ali, once he was with Malik Ashtar. He says, Malik, what's going on? This is like a friendly discussion. What's going on with these people? Malik says, yeah, Ali, of course, you know everything. But because people love to have deen and no deen together mix. Your deen is full deen, pure deen. It's so based on justice. You don't even let your brother to take a little bit of money from the Baytul Mal, right? But Muawiyah deen is beautiful for people. Why? Because there's haram in it, but there's salat as well. Right? Let's go pray behind Imam Ali because his salat is better, but let's eat the lunch of Muawiyah because his lunch is better, right? He's mixing this too. How about nowadays? That's why. Well, no, it's just a wedding. It's one night, inshallah. This is fine. Well, you're listening to this, Islam said, don't make it that. Well, you know, Islam says this is this hukm of Islam. You have to lower your gaze. Yeah, sure. You have to pay the home. Oh, sure. One of the ladies told me that. Well, that was interesting. It says someone said, you know, well, Islam doesn't make me happy. Islam doesn't benefit me. She said, oh, you're following Islam and Islam doesn't make you happy. You're following Islam and it doesn't benefit you. Islamic countries. Why some issues you see in Muslim countries? Do they follow Islam and they have issues? I'll finish with this. The other characteristics of these people of ignorance, making fun of others. It was among their characteristics, making fun of others. Your Quran says, you know, when it comes to the story of Hazrat Musa, he told them that you need to, you know, slaughter that cow for the sake of Allah. Anyhow, he says, if I be like you guys make fun of others, I'll be among the jahilin, the ignorant. But if you follow deen, they might make fun of you. They might put pressure on you, so you would not follow deen. The modern era of ignorance. We're going to talk, by the way, I'm just in this night, I'm introducing this, we're just making the similarities between these two societies. The first era of ignorance, the second era of ignorance. Then we talk about what should we do? The solutions as well, right? We'll review the solution, what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to do. We'll definitely talk about this as well. But it is important. The first important thing is that you diagnose the issue. If you want to go for a trip, you check the environment, you check the weather, right? How's the weather over there? Is everything fine over there? How are the people? Is everything safe there, right? You make sure that when you go there, it's safe before you even go there. We're living in a society. We have to make sure how's everything around us. We're breathing in the societies, right? The whole world we're talking about. We have to be careful. We have to make sure we are here. We're training our children. We're raising our children in these societies. How is it? What is it? And what we're supposed to do. When we diagnose, when we see these are the threats, then we can see, okay, so for this threat, we have to have this solution. For this one, we have to have this solution. The Jah came back soon. But they stood in front of the Imam of the time, who they invited him themselves. They said violence, right? Was characteristic of Jah. If I ask you to describe the violence in Karbala, how do you define the violence in Karbala? Never ever in the entire history of human beings, never happened what they did in half a day in Karbala. What they did to innocent people, men, women, children, a 6-month-old baby. It's unique, never happened. This scope of violence that they showed, that soon the jahl and ignorance came back to them. For the sake of dunya, for the sake of the possession, for many reasons. Muslim ibn Aqil, he had a daughter, not that old, small daughter. She was trampled by the horses of Yazidis when they were attacking the tent of Ahlul Bayt. He was trampled by the horses. children, innocent girls, boys, how this jahl and ignorance in them is affecting and affected their hearts, that they attack the imam of their time, the representative of deen of them, and they killed him with the worst type of attack and killing. I would like to narrate, brothers and sisters, for you this piece of the history of Karbala, inshallah, to have this connection. One of the ways that you can remove jahl and ignorance from your heart is connection to Imam, is connection to Iman, connection to Ahlul Bayt, connection to Quran. And the best way, based on aql and wisdom, also the emotional connection, that one tears that you will have for the sake of Imam Hussein salam will become like a bridge between you and the Iman on the side of Imam Hussein salam. And who would hear the masa'ib and tragedies of Karbala, and who would not cry for Hussein and masa'ib of Hussein and tragedies that happened to the family and the soldiers of Hussein salam. Tonight, let me tell you about the children of Zainab. Let's go with Zainab salamullahi alayha and children of Zainab salamullahi alayha. When everyone they came, the tradition saying, the history is saying that when Ali Akbar of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, he comes and he is asking for permission to go to the battlefield, Imam Hussein quickly gave him permission without any moment. Why? Because he's the son of Hussein. He should do it in front of others that he can go. Another reason might be because he's so attached to his son. He should go soon and detach from father. But when Qasim ibn al-Hassan comes, Imam, he's having hard time to give him permission until they prove that he had letter or somehow permission from his father, Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wasalam. Zainab salamullahi alayha, she knew that she has two sons in Karbala, to only two gifts that she can give to Hussein, to Quran, to the path of Islam. Narration is saying that Zainab salamullahi alayha, she went to the tent, she prepared their two sons that they're saying they were teenagers, less than probably 15-year-old, both of them. She prepared them. She told them, go to the tent of your uncle Hussein. Do not come out until he gives you permission. I know he's not going to give you permission. Go until you get permission. They went there. They came out. Oh, mother, he does not give us permission. Zainab went inside the tent to Hussein. I don't know what was happened, what they said. Maybe Zainab said, Hussein John, when Ali Akbar came, you quickly gave permission. And I have these two gifts with the permission of their father Hussein. Let me bestow these two gifts for the sake of you, Hussein. Imam Hussein gives permission. These two great Aghazadeh and sons went a great war and they sacrificed themselves for the sake of Hussein. But the history is saying that any of the shuhada of Bani Hashim, Ali Akbar, Qasim, when they became shaheed, one of those people, one Zainab Salamullah alayha, she was going there, she was supporting and helping Hussein with that shaheed of Bani Hashim. 18 members of her family became shaheed, Zainab Salamullah alayha. They said when Ali Akbar, he fell down on the ground and Hussein was with him, Zainab Salamullah alayha, she ran towards Hussein and Ali Akbar. But they narrated when the sons of Zainab were on the ground, Zainab did not come out to help. When later they asked her, Zainab, what you didn't go out and support? She said, I was afraid Hussein would be ashamed in front of me and feel shame that I have my two sons. That is why I did not go out to help him with my son. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Remember Zainab before you say salam. Remember when Zainab between the khiyam and the tent and Ghatligah, one step towards Hussein to help Hussein, one step back towards the khiyam to help the children of Hussein. They said Zainab became musta'asal, desperate in Karbala, what she's supposed to do, how she has to help Hussein or children of Hussein. Now raise your voice, say salam. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn. Raise your voice, Bismillah. Wa ala awlad al-Husayn. One more time, inshallah, your hajat. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala awlad al-Husayn wa ala ashab al-Husayn. Ala la'natullah على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والناس ومد في أمره الشريف وزين الأرض بطول بغائه واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته. يا الله بحق الحسين hasten the ظهور of his son Imam Mahdi. Let us and our generation stay strong with the path of Islam, Quran, and Ahlul Bayt. Do not let anyone from our generation be against the path of Islam. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. My brothers and sisters who have hajat and requests, give them all khair hajat. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Those who are under difficulties around the world, provide opportunities for their freedom. Those who are sick, cure them, and those who passed away. And the thawab and reward from our gathering to the soul, inshallah. Rahimallah man yaqra'u al-Fatihata ma salawat.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Jan. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Jan. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam. Salame Kabe Dilha Hussein Jan. Salame Kabe Dilha Hussein Jan. Salame Sham Ema Filha Hussein Janam. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Jan. Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam, Hussein Janam. Salome Babera Matbab Jannah. Salome Babera Matbab Jannah. Salome Rahbare Bala Hussein Janam. سلام ای میوه قلب پیامبر، سلام ای زاده زهرا حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جان، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم. همیشه بر لبم نام تو باشد، همیشه بر لبم نام تو باشد. همه گویم که ای مولا حسین جانم، غمت را از دل و جان میپذیرم، کنم بر پا عزایت را حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جان، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم. سلام ای کعبه دلها حسین جان، سلام ای شمع محفلها حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جان، حسین جانم، حسین جانم، حسین جانم. یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین، یا حسین. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين سيد المرسلين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك أيها الحسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على أولاد الحسين، السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتن الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Oh, here? Yeah, so if you stand a little bit there, or if there's standing, yeah, if you stand on the other side of the speaker, or on this side of the speaker, you wouldn't get feedback if there was a speaker. Okay. Thank you. That should be